They called it community property. I called it my island. For months, I watched as the HOA brought in contractors, bulldozers, and builders. They said it was for shared lake access, but somehow 23 shiny new cabins appeared, all sitting on land that legally belonged to me. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I waited. And when every nail was hammered, every cabin finished, and every smug HOA member congratulated themselves, I showed up in court, holding the original deed that proved the island wasn't theirs to touch. That's when everything they built started to crumble, legally, financially, and emotionally. The island wasn't much when I bought it. A small patch of wooded land in the middle of a blue lake. No bridge, no road, no power lines. Just water, trees, and peace. It was mine, every square inch of it. The previous owner had inherited it from his grandfather, and after months of searching, I finally purchased it as a private retreat. I had the deed recorded, the survey confirmed, and the property taxes paid directly to the county. Across the lake sat the Oak Ridge community, a neatly trimmed suburban development with identical houses, a homeowners association, and a reputation for being controlling. The HOA board prided itself on maintaining standards. They dictated everything, from paint colors to mailbox shapes. And somehow that sense of power began stretching beyond their boundaries. It started small. Residents would boat over to my island for picnics. Kids swam there in summer, leaving cans and litter. I didn't mind, not at first. But when I politely asked the HOA president, Linda Crow, to remind her residents that the island was private, she laughed. "Oh, you mean our island?" she said, smiling too wide. "That's community property. It's part of Oak Ridge Lake." It wasn't. The deed said otherwise. But that's when I realized this wasn't about confusion. It was about control. Within months, the HOA had posted signs on the shore calling the island a future Oak Ridge Lake Lodge area. I couldn't believe it. They'd planned construction. I contacted the HOA board in writing, attaching a copy of my deed, but they never responded. Then came the noise, chainsaws, trucks, and hammers echoing across the water. The HOA was actually building on my land. At first I assumed they'd stop once they realized their mistake. But days turned into weeks, and construction continued. Barges ferried lumber across the lake. Workers cleared trees and flattened the land. Cabins began to rise, one after another. They built 23 of them, each one fitted with shiny windows, decks, and even small docks. Neighbors bragged online about the new lakeside cabins for members. HOA newsletters announced exclusive weekend rentals for residents. Meanwhile, I stood quietly on the opposite shore, deed in hand, documenting everything. Every delivery truck, every invoice, every drone photo. When I tried confronting them again, Linda told me I was trespassing on HOA development property. She even called the sheriff. But the deputy, unsure of lake boundaries, asked me to take it to civil court. So I did. For 6 months, I let them finish building. I wanted no claim of incomplete structures or interrupted work. Every board, every beam, I wanted it all fully built before I made my move. During that time, I filed every record with my attorney, survey maps, the legal description of my parcel, even the original deed chain back to 1954. The HOA never once checked ownership before building. They just assumed. By the time they cut the ribbon for their grand opening, I was ready. At the event, the board posed for photos, champagne in hand. I stood across the lake, watching from a kayak, silent and patient. They thought they'd won. But I knew. Every cabin they built, every nail they drove, every dollar they spent, was built on my land. That's when I filed the lawsuit. The complaint was simple: trespass, unlawful construction, and property conversion. I demanded full possession of all structures on my property and financial damages for illegal use. When the summons hit their mailbox, panic spread through the HOA like wildfire. They called emergency meetings. They hired lawyers. They tried to claim the island was part of the shared lake easement, but the county assessor and land survey both confirmed. The parcel was privately owned. By me. Court day came fast. The HOA arrived with their attorney, confident and dismissive. Linda even smirked as I walked in. She believed their size, their community influence, and their budget would crush me. The judge, however, was patient but stern. I stood before him and unfolded one document, the original deed, complete with the legal description, boundaries, and the county stamp. My attorney projected the map onto the screen, showing the shaded area, the island, my island. Then, exhibit after exhibit appeared. Drone footage, tax receipts, the HOA's own newsletter boasting about their community cabins. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Crow," he said slowly, "did your association obtain the landowner's consent before construction?" She hesitated. Then silence. The courtroom was still. The HOA's attorney muttered something about good faith use and community assumption, but the judge stopped him cold. "Assumption," he said, "is not ownership." He ruled in my favor, full ownership of the island, including all 23 cabins built illegally upon it. The HOA was ordered to vacate the property immediately, pay damages, and cover my legal fees. Linda's face went pale. Members whispered, realizing their HOA dues had funded the entire illegal project. For me, it wasn't just victory, it was vindication. Resolution and impact, 1280, 1680 words. The story didn't end in court. It just began there. The HOA tried to appeal, but the judgment stood. They were forced to remove their Oak Ridge Lake Lodge signs and delete all online references to the cabins. As for the cabins themselves, the court ruled that since they were affixed to the property, ownership transferred to me. I now owned 23 brand new lakefront cabins, debt-free. I didn't gloat, not publicly. But I did make one small change. I renamed the island Crow's Folly. It became a private retreat for veterans and families in need, a quiet space for those seeking peace, the very thing the HOA had stolen from me. Word spread fast. The HOA board members resigned one by one. Homeowners were furious about lost funds and lawsuits. Their perfect community cracked from within, all because of arrogance, assumption, and greed. Months later, I visited the island alone. The cabins glowed in the evening sun, and the lake was still. I thought back to the laughter, the noise, the sense of entitlement they carried, and I realized something. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting, fighting, or threatening. It's letting them build their own downfall, nail by nail, brick by brick, until all you have to do is show the deed. So, if you ever find yourself facing an HOA that believes they can take whatever they want, remember this story. Because ownership isn't T about who talks the loudest, it's S about who holds the proof. And when the time comes to show it, do it quietly, calmly, and let the silence do the damage.